There has been a lot of news stories recently about our meat pack plants, and I'm going to go into that a little bit, and then I will share my own personal story towards the end. So if you make it through, like, you have something interesting to look forward to. I hope this is all interesting though. So this week, the House Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Crisis will examine the role of the three largest meat companies, JBS, Smithfield Foods, and Tyson, in the coronavirus outbreak. The subcommittee says that these companies refuse to take basic precautions to protect their workers and had shown a callous disregard for their workers' health. ProPublica has a bunch of really in-depth articles on this subject that I would highly recommend you read if you want further details, and I'm going to be sharing parts of them throughout the whole series here. But this is as of February 5th, 2021. This data is from thefern.org, and they collect data on outbreaks in our food system. It's a great resource to log on to and investigate which companies have had the highest rates of outbreaks. Just shocking numbers, like 86,945 workers tested positive for COVID-19. This is 57,000 meatpacking workers. 369 workers have died, 278 in the meatpacking industry. And these meatpacking plants and slaughterhouses especially were cases of COVID-19 infection throughout our country. And I'll go into a little bit more about that and what effects that it had on those local communities. And we will look at how the animal agriculture industry perpetuated these outbreaks, gave money to politicians to receive relief funding while putting workers at risk, and also committing some of the most horrifying acts of animal cruelty that I've ever seen. Back in May, Nebraska Governor Pete Ricketts refused to allow a JBS meatpacking plant to close, despite health officials' pleas to close and allow them to create a solid screening process. Teresa Anderson, a regional health director, drafted a letter to Ricketts, but he would not allow the plants to close. And Nebraska, as a result, became one of the fastest growing hotspots for COVID-19. This is a fantastic article in ProPublica by Grayball and Bernice Young. This was published December 21st, and I highly recommend you all read it. But here's kind of the details of this. You all might have heard of how Tyson managers bet money on how many workers would get COVID. This plant had 2,800 workers employed. They processed 19,500 hogs per day. And of the 2,800 workers, 1,000 contracted the virus. This is because of the long hours and cramped conditions in these facilities. The Black Hawk County Sheriff, Tony Thompson, visited and reported the working conditions there, quote, shook him to the core. The plant manager organized a cash buy-in, winner-take-all betting pool for supervisors and managers to wager how many plant employees would test positive for COVID-19. One upper-level manager at the plant is alleged to have explicitly directed supervisors to ignore symptoms of COVID-19, telling them to show up to work even if they were exhibiting symptoms of the virus. The manager reportedly referred to COVID-19 as the glorified flu, and told workers not to worry about it because it's no big deal. And quote, everyone is going to get it. On one occasion, the manager intercepted a sick supervisor who was on his way to be tested and ordered him to get back to work, saying, "We all have symptoms. You have a job to do." After one employee vomited on the production line, managers reportedly allowed the man to continue working and then return to work the next day. In late March or early October, as the pandemic spread across Iowa, managers at the Waterloo plant reportedly began avoiding the plant floor for fear of contracting the virus themselves. They increasingly delegated managerial authority and responsibilities to low-level supervisors who had no management training or experience. The supervisors did not require truck drivers and subcontractors to have their temperatures checked before entering the plant either. In March and April, the plant supervisors falsely denied the existence of any confirmed cases or positive tests for COVID-19 within the plant. And they told workers that they had a responsibility to keep working to ensure Americans didn't go hungry as a result of the shutdown. Tyson also paid out $500 thank you bonuses to employees who turned up sick for every scheduled shift for 3 months. And this incentivized sick workers to continue reporting to work. Tyson also lobbied the governor, Kim Reynolds, for protection. Her picture is here, and I'll discuss more of that later. Another packing plant was Noah's Ark Processors in Nebraska. And as of May 15th, 12 out of 25 hotspot counties with the highest per capita infection rates originated in these meatpack plants. On November 23rd, the ACLU filed a lawsuit against Noah's Ark Processors in Nebraska. Their negligence includes not promptly replacing workers' masks when they become soiled with blood, fat, sweat, forcing workers to leave part or all of their face uncovered. The plant made no effort to physically distance workers from one another while they were at the plant. Every day they stood shoulder to shoulder for hours at a time on the processing lines. And they sat in crowded, small windowless cafeterias where they could not wear masks while eating. The plant did not offer adequate sick leave to ensure that the workers could stay home. It pressured sick people to work, allowed others to keep working despite their symptoms, and refused to pay many who had stayed home because of symptoms. It did not announce any sick leave policies to its workers. And on top of everything else, Noah's Ark did not provide any on-site testing. So when there was a surge in cases, the plant and its workers had no idea until it was too late. And you'll remember this quote from my last presentation by Susan Lieberman, the vice president of the Wildlife Conservation Society, who is a leader in the One Health movement, is quoted as saying, "The impediments to One Health in the past and moving forward are entrenched economic interests." And one of these interests is Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds. It was recently discovered that she has very close ties to the pork industry. Mary Ann Christensen, a board member of Christensen Farms, a large pork production company, disproportionately benefited from the Iowa Coronavirus Aid Program that she started. Mary Ann Christensen made a $25,000 donation to Kim Reynolds' campaign on December 29th. And Christensen Farm received $1.86 million through the Iowa Disposal Assistance Program. 72% of the pandemic aid awarded in its first round went to the Christensen Farms. The program basically was created to reimburse farmers for the costs related to the hogs that they killed after COVID-19 disrupted their supply chain. And I'll go into that more in detail too. And they used the most horrific methods imaginable to solve this problem. Only a tiny fraction of Iowa's estimated 6,200 pig farms applied for payments, but Christensen Farms received aids for disposing 46,599 killed hogs between May 1st and June 5th. That's 6 times as many as any other company during that period. This report showed a 165-page list of donations that Reynolds received, and it included major support from leader pork industry. And she helped them during the pandemic by working to keep meatpacking plants open and also signing into law a new Ag-gag law, which I'll discuss later. Reynolds and Agriculture Secretary Mike Nang launched the disposal program in May, reimbursing farmers $40 for each market-ready hog up to 225 pounds that they killed, not via the usual slaughter methods. The governor eventually approved to $9 million for the program, but only 4.8 million of that has been used due to lower than expected demand. Iowa Select Farms owner Deb Hansen was the governor's largest individual donor, giving $50,000 in September. Their family has a history of giving the governor hundreds of thousands of dollars, I think up to like $400,000. Tyson executives allegedly lobbied Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds for COVID-19 liability actions that would shield the company from lawsuits, and also successfully lobbied the governor to declare that only the state government, not local governments, had the authority to close businesses in response to the pandemic. On April 28th, Trump used the Defense Production Act, which is a Korean War era law, to allow meat companies to compel their workers to return to work despite worsening COVID-19 outbreaks. Meat plants were considered essential infrastructure. This prevented local health officials from ordering meatpacking plants to close. The CDC and OSHA guidance for safety during the pandemic were voluntary and not enforceable. Jason Walsh, the executive director of the Blue-Green Alliance, which is a coalition of and environmental groups, said, "Workers in the American food industry are vital to us all, but the terrible working conditions that already existed in the industry have only been exacerbated by the COVID-19 virus. Donald Trump is finally using the Defense Production Act, but not to make manufacturers produce the protective equipment that essential workers so desperately need to be safe. Instead, Trump is using the DPA to try to force workers back on the job in unsafe conditions. It doesn't get more wrong than that." Julian Potts, president of the North American Meat Institute, drafted the executive order that was sent to top officials at the USDA. It emphasized the importance of the food supply chain and how outbreaks had reduced production. It proposed that the president make the proclamation, quote, "I hereby order that critical infrastructure food companies continue their operations to the fullest extent possible." On April 28th, a week after Potts sent the suggested language for the executive order, Trump issued the executive order on delegating under the DPA with respect to food supply chain resources during the national emergency caused by the outbreak of COVID-19. It is also becoming a growing problem that organizations created to regulate the meat industry are now being influenced by the industry and corporations themselves for benefit and profit. Scientists working for the greater good of the public are losing their power and influence over the whole regulatory systems in place. One example is Chief Veterinarian of the Food Safety and Inspection Service, Dr. Pat Basu. He retired in 2018 and was really the last one standing in the way of the industry having unrestricted control over the industry. He quoted in the New York Times as saying, "When it comes to power, no one dares stand up to the pork industry, not even the US government." As soon as he left, they got rid of many veterinarian inspectors in the plants and trained workers on the floor to do inspections instead. He was also the only one preventing increase in slaughter line speeds, and they increased drastically once he left. And he's also quoted as saying, but public health investigators at times have been unable to obtain even the most basic information about practices on farms. Livestock industry executives sit on federal agricultural department advisory committees, pour money into political campaigns, and have had a seat at the table in drafting regulations for the industry, helping to ensure that access to farms is generally at the owner's discretion. Dr. Basu said the pork industry regularly thwarted access to information on antibiotic use. Now, I'll warn you, the next few images on my slides are troubling, and they show some dead animals. So if you don't want to see that, you can look away. As a result of these packing plants closing and slaughterhouses closing, decreased capacity, pigs continued to grow and become of weight to go to and enter the slaughter lines. But as they exceeded the weights and exceeded capacity, the industry had nowhere to go, no way to process them. So of course, they decided to kill them in one of the most horrific ways possible, clearly just prioritizing profits over the well-being of animals. There are 10 depopulation methods available to producers to kill excess animals in these cases, but they chose one of the most horrific. And I follow the pork industry pretty closely. I got inklings that this was going to be done, but I didn't really know what it would look like. And I was asking questions on veterinarian message boards and social media about this practice. Many veterinarians, before this actually happened and before the news broke and the story came out, were like, this won't be done. This is crazy. This is animal rights propaganda. This doesn't actually exist. And it absolutely, after it came out, it was shocking in the world. So they decided to use this tactic known as ventilation shutdown. The barns are sealed off and all of the pigs are put into these barns. I'm sorry, this might be triggering to folks. I'll try not to make it too gruesome, but I'm just warning you ahead of time. Thousands of these pigs are put in these barns. The windows are sealed off and steam is pumped in, and the pigs are killed over many hours, sometimes unsuccessfully. And they never really done this before, so it was a lot of trial and error happening. A whistleblower from Iowa Select Farms, which is a $1 billion corporation and Iowa's largest pork producer, broke the law to help bring this tactic to the public's attention because they were so disturbed by the corporation's decision and use of this tactic. So that's the end of the pictures. If you want to turn back, I am going to go into some details about what went on. The whistleblower basically prevails about the first attempts at using this practice. Many of these experiments failed to kill after many hours. Several attempts were made at killing the pigs using VSD before the practice became somewhat successful. The first attempt succeed in heating the building past 120 degrees. And after 4 to 5 hours, none of the animals had died. Then they decided to add in steam. Whistleblower footage from The Intercept and Direct Action Everywhere shows this taking place on May 19th, 2020. Just for reference, Trump signed the DPA on April 28th. The whistleblower reported a massive increase in pig production over 2019, and space for pigs was becoming increasingly smaller, and the pigs appeared to be housed double what was permitted by normal standards. And I just want to remind you that if you torture an animal in your backyard and you risk arrest, You risk arrest. But if you torture millions of animals as a billion-dollar corporation, that's just business. But if you're one of these whistleblowers who uncovers cruelty and bring it to the public's attention and save one of them from suffering and death and take them to the veterinarian, that end up getting you arrested. The AVM, the American Veterinary Medical Association, was used by Iowa Select Farm to give some legitimacy to this practice. Jen Sorensen, who was the communications director at Iowa Select Farms, said, veterinarians and production well-being professionals are overseeing the process to ensure accordance with the American Association of Swine Veterinarians and the American Veterinary Medical Association. They were saying Iowa Select Farms uses veterinary approved methods, and they were following the AVMA guidelines on depopulation of animals. As a result of this, many veterinarians were shocked by this and did not think that this should be a recommended method. I mean, it's one thing to think about this in the abstract, but to actually see it taking place in person, we have to realize, like, this is not an appropriate way to kill these animals. I, along with several other veterinarians who are appalled by this practice, founded this website, Veterinarians Against Ventilation Shutdown. The website asks the AVMA to reclassify VSD as a not recommended form of euthanasia. Over 1,500 veterinarians have signed on to the petition. An application was submitted to the AVMA House of Delegates to consider a resolution reclassifying ventilation shutdown as not recommended. The proposal was submitted late, but we made history because this was the first time ever the AVMA House of Delegates refused to hear a late submission. So we will try next summer. In the meantime, I urge all veterinarians to contact your delegate and discuss this issue. We're looking to what interests are preventing AVMA from making the right decision in this case. It's not letting me switch slides. Oh, there we go. So the only way we would have found out about this practice is due to activists and whistleblowers with their freedom to bring this horrifying practice to the public's attention. And they were charged with crimes based on Ag-gag laws, which were created by the industry to shield their practices from consumer scrutiny. In Grundy County, they faced 2 trespassing charges, Wright County felony, misdemeanor wiretap from the hidden video and audio recording, and misdemeanor trespass. Jilly is one of the pigs that was rescued. She had bloody wounds on her face and legs, a fever, and in this case, all non-baby pigs were being killed due to the supply backup from COVID. And Jilly had no economic value to the company and would have been disposed of. But luckily, a couple weeks ago, the trespassing charges against Matt Johnson in Grundy County were dropped. Prosecutors dropped the charges at the request of Iowa Select Farms because they did not want to testify in court. They likely did not want further attention given to this cruel practice. The charges in Wright County, including the felony charges, are still pending. And a little bit about Ag-gag laws. Again, the only way we would have known about this was because of people committing acts of civil disobedience to bring the public's attention. The industry and lawmakers are closely connected, and many lawmakers pass these laws to protect their own businesses. And these types of laws limit transparency, threaten freedom of the press, and lead to untold levels of animal abuse, worker abuse, public health risks, and environmental pollution. And this is an industry that is shrouded in secrecy. In response to the VSD footage getting international media attention, Iowa passed a new Ag-gag law sponsored sponsored a pig factory farm owner, Senator Ken Rosenboom. And this is also supported by the Iowa pork producers. The law criminalized food operation trespass, and the first offense will land you up to 2 years incarceration and up to a $6,250 fine. Second offense was a felony with up to 5 years in prison and a $500 fine. This was rushed through in a matter of days and signed into law by Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds, who has received, again, hundreds of dollars in donations from the family of Iowa Select Farms CEO, Jeff Hansen. And here's a little bit about my story. I guess I was a little naive going into this. I never knew the extent of the animal ag industry, what extent it goes to silence critics. I never thought raising awareness about these issues on social media and trying to find out more information on these issues firsthand would put me at risk, but I was shocked to find out that it did. I was part of a lot of online veterinarian Facebook groups and message boards where we share cases and discuss treatment options for our patients, and also network with other veterinarians. And I posted asking to shadow a livestock veterinarian to learn more about their jobs, ask them questions, and then a few individuals started making outrageous claims about me. And I found I was starting to be blocked from veterinary groups. And anytime I posted on message boards, which obviously wasn't very often because I'm very busy, people would start attacking me and my motives. It was like really weird. And then my colleagues who knew me personally sent me screenshots of groups I was blocked in and what they were saying about me. And here is what they did. This was a meme that was sent out about me. I came to find out somebody went through all of my Facebook and looked at all the groups I was in and sent the admins of all of the groups I was in this meme. And this meme started floating around the veterinary community. It says, I have an agenda that doesn't include anything positive for our profession, and that I have publicly expressed a fondness for the Animal Liberation Front and the Earth Liberation Front, which are groups I didn't really know much about. And I found, I looked through, like maybe I liked one of their posts or something, and I didn't even like them or like one of their posts. So I don't know where that came from. And it also says, we recommend you block this person, Crystal Heath. And this, I've come to find out there's the group behind this is called the Animal Agriculture Alliance. This image is from a Freedom of Information Act request of the USDA, Agriculture and Marketing Service, that and mentions me by name, claiming that given her involvement with extreme activism, we believe her intentions are to gather information she can use against the industry. We recommend spreading the word to your veterinary contacts in California using private member channels only. They include screenshots from when I asked to shadow a livestock or poultry veterinarian, as well as a post on my personal Facebook page saying how if we want to save all the beings on this planet, we need to end animal agriculture. My post also pointed out that our CAFOs are the same as the wet markets blamed at the time for causing the novel coronavirus. This email, for a point of reference, was sent on April 17th. So the Animal Agriculture Alliance claim their mission is to help bridge the communication gap between farm and fork, and it is run by those with industry and corporate ties. They receive money from government organizations like the National Pork Board, which is why we received this email from the FOIA requests. These are the board of directors of the Animal Agriculture Alliance, and they are all of those who profit from protecting corporate factory farms. You'll see leaders of Smithfield, of course, pharmaceutical companies like Zoetis and Merck. Also Dallas Hockman of the National Pork Producers Council, who I'll talk about later. individual veterinary professionals shouldn't be the target of deceptive misinformation campaigns spread by government-funded organizations. If medical professionals have to fear that the government-funded lies will be perpetuated about them, it's going to have a dampening impact on truth and inquiry and lead to decisions being made based on corporate and government interests rather than public welfare. This picture is the mission statement of the Animal Agriculture Alliance, claiming that they engage food chain influencers and promote consumer choice by helping them better understand modern animal agriculture. We protect by exposing those who threaten our nation's food security with damaging misinformation. This is along with an email from Dallas Hockman, Vice President of Industry Relations from the National Pork Producer, commenting about ventilation shutdown. He says, "We definitely need to come up with a new name to describe this. I am getting questions from McDonald's on this, and they would like to have a response from us they could use." He adds, "Obviously, I'm not talking about press release or other public announcements." So who is the one who is, talking about secrecy here? Like, these are the people who are really wanting to hide the truth. As a result of these FOIA documents, Glenn Greenwald broke about my story and interviewed me on his show System Update. I'd recommend checking it out for more details on the Animal Agriculture Alliance. And we need to change these unconstitutional Ag-gag laws. We need to support activists and whistleblowers who bring corporate abuses to light. And we need to hold industry politicians accountable to adopt more compassionate systems. Remember, One Health is the concept that human, animal, plant, and environmental health are all interconnected. Corporations and governments need to prioritize One Health instead of industry and ultra wealthy interests if we are going to stop future pandemics, climate change, and save our planet. So as a result of the retaliation that I faced, many other veterinary professionals came to me and they said, "We have experienced similar struggles working to advocate for more compassionate systems." We have posted some of their stories on this website, but I co-founded this group in order to amplify compassionate voices in our profession and organize to create more compassionate systems. The greatest advancements in humanity have come from us working together to have more compassion for others, from abolishing slavery, women's suffrage, women's rights, labor rights, civil rights, gay rights, racial justice. As we exercise compassion for others, we create a better world. And this extends to saving our planet and preventing future pandemics. Policies that embrace the intrinsic value that other species have and aim to prevent suffering and respects our natural world and biodiversity will reverse the course of climate change and slow the rates of emerging diseases. We need to consider all stakeholders in our policy proposals. Right now, the stakeholders given the most consideration are the millionaires, billionaires, and giant corporations. We need to consider the most vulnerable populations, those who have been marginalized and exploited, the animals whose lives are reduced to units of production, those who are losing their habitat, those who are unable to wield money influence over policymakers. Plants, waterways, oceans too, they are all stakeholders in this. And these are the stakeholders we need to consider. These are the ones struggling to maintain an habitable Earth for all of us. We need to consider them because we cannot be healthy on a dying planet. Here are some links if you want some more information on my story and the media coverage that I received. Check it out. But yeah, I'm sorry we went long, but I thought that that was really important, and it's our last week. Again, here's some contact information if you'd want to reach out to me directly. And just one last thing, we had an outbreak of H3N2 influenza A variant from a kid who lived on a pig farm on February 5th, and we will see the results of that. But that is all I have for you guys.